His team needed him, and he delivers once again.
Magnificent first 100 in Test cricket.
An innings of grit and determination from Stephen Smith.
It is an outstanding 100 for an outstanding cricketer. And a statement of the highest quality from Steve Smith. This fine batsman rises again.
Smithy, great to have a chat to you. Before we start, we've got one thing in common. Our birthdays, June the 2nd.
That's it. Yours is a bit earlier than mine, obviously.
What about 30-odd years? 2 Australian captains born on the same day. What's the likelihood of that?
Yeah, probably pretty rare.
Thanks for your time. Just want to go back to the early days. Did you always think you were going to be a professional cricketer? Or were you good at school?
I wasn't good at school.
Yeah, same as me.
No, it was always sport with me. Cricket, obviously, is my first sport. I didn't know that I was, I suppose, going to be a professional, but, you know, that was always the plan. You know, like most kids in Australia, you grow up and if you're playing cricket, you want to play for Australia. So that was the dream and, yeah, fortunate to be living it out now.
I remember my careers advisor at school, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, be a professional cricketer, and he just laughed. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's Ron Perrott at East Hills Boys High. I hope you're watching, Ron. So in those days, your late teens, when you're starting to be a good player, was there any coach that influenced your technique or players you looked up to? This is a loaded question, that one.
Loaded question,
There's a few players you did like to.
Yeah, June, I didn't mind watching you play, to be honest.
That's a good answer. Good stuff.
As a kid, I was fortunate. My old man helped me out a lot. Every day after school, he'd take me up to the nets and I'd do all the extra stuff outside of training for my club or my rep team back then. For him, it was, you know, it was trying to make me a better player. I always wanted to improve as a kid and sort of be the best at that age. So one thing I think stood out for me was each year growing up. So my old man, for instance, when I was 10, he'd bowl from the crease line. The next year, he'd overstep the mark by about a foot. The next year, he'd go another foot further. So he was just getting closer and closer to me. And I think that helped me develop, you know, against faster bowling quicker than a lot of other kids. And, you know, we talk about blokes having time at the crease. So that was something that he sort of brought into me and let me sort of develop my own way of batting. Didn't sort of overcoach me, let me find my own feed. And, you know, he was my biggest influence probably growing up. And then I had, I think when I was around 16, Trent Woodhill was coach at Sutherland grade club at that stage. And, you know, I did some good batting stuff with him. You know, he had some really good philosophies about batting and in particular, you know, just letting people do it their own way. You know, one thing that stood out for me was he said my off stump's basically my leg stump. You know, you're taught as a kid, I suppose, to off stump balls you should probably hitting down the ground. But he's like, why don't you just whip them through the onside?
Oh, why not? If you can do it, just don't miss it.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I obviously had brothers to play with in the backyard, but my mum and dad were good tennis players.
Yeah.
I think that's how I developed my catching, you know, because mum and dad used to practice their volleys against us. We'd throw the ball. And catching a tennis ball, as you know, is a lot lighter than a cricket ball. So it's funny how your younger days almost develop some of your skills, even though you don't think that's the case. But it's interesting, I mean...
Did you play tennis as well?
Yeah, I played tennis, played state tennis, state juniors.
I did, I played a lot. And I reckon...
We had a lot in common.
The question I was going to ask, I think, is your... So bottom hand, for instance, on the bat, would it be similar to how you held a tennis racket?
Yeah, it would be, yeah, potentially so.
Yeah,
I bet you had a strong topspin forehand. if your cricket grip's any relation to your tennis grip, did you have a strong forehand?
Is it called might be the semi-western?
Western grip.
Western grip, bit under.
We'll talk about your technique a bit more in cricket, but your technique, I don't think anyone could probably coach that. I mean, in no disrespect. I mean, we're all different and there's no right or wrong, but your technique for an elite player is completely different to anyone else. I don't think there's anyone else I've seen with your grip, with your back lift, with your footwork, your stance, which they've all changed over the years. But so were you always sort of that unorthodox, or did it just evolve over the years?
I don't think I was always that unorthodox. I kind of...
Unusual, whatever the word is.
I mean, I think I watched you a lot as a kid. I think you see the way my sort of bat comes out.
Yeah.
I think yours sort of came out quite a bit and then came back round. I think hands are very natural, and if I was coaching a kid, I wouldn't work with someone's hands too much. I think they're your most natural
It's just
thing.
how you pick it up, natural, isn't it?
Yeah, so for me it was, just how I held the bat and where the bat went to, and whilst the bat goes out to like point, and it still comes back around on the right plane. So
yeah, well, that's the main thing. It's interesting you talk about hands, because to me that was the biggest thing with me. Even with gloves, right? I hated getting new gloves that had powder on them or a bit stiff, or they got a bit wet.
Yeah.
So the feel was always huge for me as well. And if the gloves didn't feel right, I just couldn't swing the bat through right. I couldn't control the bat face as well as I could. I noticed you, like I carried 3 pairs of gloves, right? Back in my day. I've seen you've got about 30 pairs set out. You batted a lot longer than me most of the time that through. But I actually hated changing my gloves. But to you, it's you talk about your hands and your feet being in sync, because with your technique, you've got to have great hands, I reckon, and you hit the gaps better than anybody, and that comes from your hands, I guess.
Yeah, I think for me, I do carry a lot of gloves.
Have you got a baggage handler with you at all times?
No.
Considering you've got, how many bats on tour?
Yeah, 7 or 8 maybe, and then...
I've seen more than that. I've got a photo,
Every now and again. Every now and again.
I reckon you had about 14 on one tour when I was selector.
Maybe.
I
was trying to figure which one to use.
It was about $2,000 each. I should have pinched a couple.
But no, I carry a lot of gloves because I'm quite a big sweater, and part of my routine, something I do, I like push my hand like this, and one of the parts that first gets wet is there. So when it gets too wet, I like... I slide off, and it feels weird, so it doesn't work with my routine. So usually if it's pretty warm out there, I'd change close to almost every 15, 20 minutes, let them dry, and then recycle them back through, hopefully.
You know what they call a 12th man's nightmare? When I played Greg Matthews was the 12th man's nightmare. You'd just leave his kit at the gate. So he'd be calling for a jumper or something, or gloves or chewing gum or something. You're not quite in his ilk, but I guess you would be pretty tough for the 12th man.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so we're sort of up to that stage of your career where you first played for New South Wales. We'll just leap forward to your Test career. So you got picked, I think, 21.
Yep.
And you got picked at number 7 as a leg spinner who batted.
Lower than that, I think. I was 8 or 9. I'm pretty sure.
I'm glad I wasn't selected then. Who were those selectors then?
Who was there?
Bacchus Marsh.
Digger,
I
reckon. Andrew Hilditch. Who else was on the panel? Greg Chappell, I reckon, was on the panel.
So what did you think of that? Because obviously you would have thought yourself as a batsman who bowled a bit of leg spin, and here you are batting at 9, bowling leg spin.
I guess I was fortunate in that era. Warnie had obviously finished a few years earlier. I reckon they went through somewhere between 11 and 15 spinners in that stage.
Yes, they must have, yeah.
There was a lot just going through the turnstiles. And then I was one of those. So, I rolled out a few leggies. I always saw myself as more of a batter than a bowler, but as a kid, just wanted to be involved in the game as much as possible. So, worked on my bowling and wanted to get in the game. So, I was fortunate to, debut in 2010 at Lords. Obviously a dream come true. My hat presented by Punter, one of my childhood heroes as well. So, it was a bit surreal, I suppose, walking out as
less pressure, I guess, being a part-time bowler, and your main suit was batting, but you got 77 in the second test, didn't you? Batting at what position? Number 9, did you tell me?
I think I batted at 9.
That's embarrassing.
I reckon Paney was 7. I think Mitch Johnson was in at 8. And I reckon I came in at 9. Believe it or not.
That is ridiculous. You could have went in as night watchman. Put your hand up. Yeah.
But slogged a few that day at Headingley. We were in a bit of trouble, and slogged a few around, and sort of gave me a little bit of confidence to know that I could score runs against some.
Did you go up to the selectors or the captain and say, hey, number 9,
get me up the order, mate?
Did you quietly have a word to him?
Or no, not at that stage.
Just mind your own business, a young fella.
I was a bit young and a bit shy then.
Smithy, let's talk about the cover drive. We all love a cover drive, don't we?
Yeah.
We like a flick off the pads, but just talk me through your cover drive, your setup and your hands, the backlift, your grip. What are the important things for you when you play a cover drive?
I think for me, firstly, it's getting my weight through the ball in the direction that I want to hit it. So I think, you know, I don't change too much technically to begin with. You see the ball, see the line of the ball, and then for me it's coming back round. The top of the handle is pointing to where I want to hit the ball. My foot's probably pointing in the direction where I want the ball to go.
Yep.
And then it's just playing with really good shape, getting my head towards my target and my weight going in the direction where I want to hit the ball. I think that's the first one. And then I think the other one, which you can play on flatter wickets where the ball's not doing as much, where you can bring your bottom hand more into play and potentially just hit through the line, whether it be straight or squarer, depending on the length and the line. But I think that's the other swing that you can bring into play to hit a cover drive as well. Similar to how you play them, I think, June.
Yeah, so the cover drive for me is, you know, my feet quite narrow really for compared to some other players of a wider stance. But to me, it's just picking up the line of the ball and then just a slight step, you know, a reasonable step, and then the bat just comes through on that line. So it's really following the line of my front foot where the bat comes through. So nice straight bat, slightly closed sometimes, but at point of impact pretty good. Then just sort of my natural sort of action, my wrist action slightly closes the face, but at point of impact it's pretty flush on you know, hitting the middle of the bat. If it's a little bit fuller, probably don't need to move the foot as much, just hitting the ball late and then sort of maybe a bit later through the gap. So you're always looking at the gaps. No point hitting a good cover drive if you're going to hit it straight at the fieldsman. So you've always got that in the back of your mind, where what angle, you know, the bat face needs to be to get through the field. But in summary, just a nice short stride in control. Don't have to overhit it. Then just bring the bat through on that plane, that's sort of pointing where the foot's going as well. So that's about it. Smithy, we've covered the cover drive. Let's talk about leg side play. What are the main things to think about when you're playing through the leg side? Is it the line of the ball, the length of the ball, a combination of that? Just talk us through it. Yeah, I think a bit of everything. You know, I think for me, it's been one of my biggest scoring options in my career. Usually, you know, the bowlers are setting a pretty heavily packed offside field, few slips in place, so there's always plenty of gaps on the leg side. So I think you can score plenty of runs from mid-on all the way to fine leg, playing on the leg side, both off the front and back foot. I think the keys for me is keeping your face as straight as you can for as long as possible, and then letting your wrist take over and closing your face from there. If you close too early, I think you're playing with half a bat and you're a reasonable chance to miss it. So keeping your face as straight as possible and then twisting your wrists around as late as possible. With that, I think pivoting on your foot, particularly when you're playing off the front foot, I'm one to sort of pivot and go with the ball. You sort of start your run almost as well. So, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Getting your head outside the line of the ball so you can hit it in certain areas. You know, the further you go across, potentially the finer you can hit it, or the more you stay in line with the ball, you can hit it a little bit straighter. So I think, you know, part of the game as a batsman is hitting the gaps, and that's how we score our runs. We don't want to hit the fielders. So you've got plenty of options there. That would be sort of how I would explain it. How about you? Well, just back on that. So to youngsters, when we're saying playing to the leg side, you don't want your bat swinging sort of from gully across to mid-on. It's more of a straight bat, then you're just closing the face at the last minute. You're not actually playing across the line, even though you're playing to the leg side. Would you say that's important? Yeah, I think that's a fair summation. You want to keep your face as straight as possible for as long as possible, and then use your wrists, bring your bottom hand into play probably to flick it to the leg side, something you did very well throughout your career. Well, to me, it was more of a natural shot to me on the leg side. I don't know whether it's the way I was brought up or the backyard, there was more room on the leg side, or maybe Stephen bowled me more balls on the leg side. But it was just a natural sort of shot to me. Once again, not big footwork, but just playing the ball, sometimes playing it late if you want to hit it square, or a bit earlier if you want to hit it straighter, and just controlling the bat face, not swinging across the line. So a straight bat face, as you said, and then manipulating the angle with your hands at point of impact. It's often good leg side play is associated with balance. That is the key, I think. You know, you see when players are out of form, they get hit in the pads all the time because they're overbalancing, they're not watching the ball closely. So I think you've got to watch the ball closely, and your balance has got to be more moving forward rather than across to the leg side. I think that's the key element of playing on the leg side. I can always tell if a player's out of form when they're getting hit on the pads all the time or on the hip.
Yep.
They're not watching the ball closely or their balance is not right.
Yep.
So, I'd say that's a key point of playing on the leg side as well.
Nice.
Well, we need to talk about short pitch bowling because it's a part of the game that can be intimidating for a lot of young kids and batsmen as well. I don't know many players who like short pitch bowling. It's a bit of a myth saying you love short pitch bowling. I think Matthew Hayden might have said it and Ricky Ponting, but I don't know anyone else. But how did you handle short pitch bowling? How did you get out of the way or defend it or score off it?
Yeah, well, I play the pull shot quite a lot as well, so it's I guess a profitable shot for me. Bowlers that drop short of a length or bowl short, first approach for me is to try and hit the ball. It's a natural shot for me, so it's sort of played on instinct. And then outside of that, it's trying to get out of the way of the ball, particularly if the field's set for the short stuff and they're trying to get you out that way. You need to be able to get out of the way of the ball as well. So I think for me, it's trying to take as much fear out of it as possible. I think if you're a little bit scared or a bit timid, you're probably sitting on the back foot and then you're in a position where you're a bit vulnerable. If you're sort of still looking to go at the ball as much as possible and have yourself in a nice powerful position, you're in a better position to sway or duck or weave or whatever you want to do to get out of the way of the ball. Try and take the fear out of play as much as possible, get yourself in a nice powerful position, and from there you'll be able to get out of the way a lot easier.
I think you've got to sort of somehow think of it like, say someone just throws something to you out of the blue, you just naturally get out of the way, or if someone goes to punch you, not that I've been in a fight, you duck, don't you? Or you move your head.
Yeah.
I think that's what you've got to try and do when the short ball is being bowled at you in a cricket game.
Agreed.
It's a funny parallel to draw, but that's probably the way to sort of think about it.
Yep. How did you face the short ball? Particularly, the Windies back in the day bowled a fair bit of it to you. What was the approach there?
Well, I found it easy to back away and hit over,
Go offside.
over the slips. Now, it looked like I was scared or it looked a bit ugly, but to me, I reckon it annoyed the West Indies, definitely. I had a bit of luck doing it.
It's the name of the game, isn't it, to score runs,
Well,
and if there's an opportunity there.
It's not how, and it's not how you look sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the result you get. So that was an option to me, which was a bit of premeditation to do it, to be honest, because you're probably giving your stumps away a little bit. But 5 out of 6 balls the West Indies bowled in that era were generally short. You're pretty unlucky if you pitched it up, and if you could, then you'd
trust yourself to hit it
anyway.
anyway.
You probably could hit it anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the way I played it. Tried to duck or sway, not a great hooker of the ball, but could go over the gully or the slips. So those were my options. Not pretty, but
effective.
All right, we're going to talk about catching and fielding, both things that we used to love and do.
Yep.
Tell me, did you always love fielding? Because I feel like the best fieldsmen really, they love it and they want the ball to come to them. Was that the case with you?
Definitely. As a kid, I always wanted the ball to come to me, which I think is a good starting point. If you're shying away from it and you don't want it to come to you, you're probably not in the right attitude to pull off good catches or be in a position to do that. Steve Rickson actually told me when I was debuting for Australia, he said, you spend 50% of your time in the field, so you might as well be good at it. And that always stuck with me. Always wanted to be as good as I could be at it.
Probably more of time if you can't bat. About 90% of the field. So slips catching to the quick bowlers, what are the main factors you need to concentrate on? Concentration, technique? Talk me through it.
I think, for me, for quick bowlers, I generally field at second slip, where you spend a lot of time. For me, I watch the ball the whole way. I'm not sure you're the same.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think for me, it's just getting my feet in a position where I'm powerful. Everyone's different the way their bodies are, so get yourself in the most powerful position to be able to launch off either way. And yeah, I don't have great hip mobility. I can't get too low, so you know I've got quite long arms that get me out of trouble on occasions.
Long levers, yeah.
Long levers, but so for me, it's just getting myself in a powerful position. My eyes nice and level, my head as still as it can be,
yeah.
And from there, it's just watching that ball as close as I can and as late as I can. I don't think there's much more to it.
Yeah, it's interesting though, slips catching to fast bowlers, and particularly a hard ball. You say you've got to have soft hands, but you do, but you've also got to have tension there to, you know, cushion the blow, because it's a hard ball and it's coming quite quick. So when we say soft hands, it's not like floppy hands, is it? You've got to have some tension there. So that balance is important, I guess, with catching there.
Yeah, agreed. I think in practice, when you're practicing, you practice all the soft hand stuff and technique and getting yourself in good positions. But I think when you're out in the middle and, you know, nothing's happened all day, you're waiting on that ball and you're still concentrating every ball, you just do whatever you can to catch it. You're natural when the ball comes, and you know, you could catch it with as hard as hands as possible.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
You're just waiting on that ball, and you do what you can to catch it when it comes to you. What do you think are the keys to slip fielding?
So you've got to be focused every ball of the day, and you know, you do your things, you relax between deliveries to focus on the ball. So concentration is the first thing, I think, and then I think it's your technique. You know, you talk about your positioning of your feet. I had my feet about shoulder width apart, and I found that the best way I could move forward, back, up and down. Didn't want to be too low or too high in my stance, so you know, getting your stance right is the key, obviously. Knowing your conditions, your bowlers, your batsmen, in fact, as well. And like you, watching the ball all the way from the hand. Some fieldsmen just watch the bat, which I find incredibly difficult. To me, if you're watching the ball, you get that extra, you know, that extra half second, you know, where you can anticipate.
Well, it's a thing you got to catch as well, isn't it?
You can anticipate the shot, looking at delivery, the length of the line of a delivery. So I think that's, if I was saying to any young slips fieldsman, I would say watch the ball all the way.
Agreed.
You know, they're two things: watching the ball all the way, concentration, practicing your hand positions. I was always fingers down, and unless the ball was probably above chest high, then you go fingers up. Whereas someone like Ricky Ponting, he got down
hands
really
up
low.
down here, wasn't
he? That's the way he used to catch. But so your hand position is crucial.
So let's talk our top 3 favourite catches each. What are your top 3?
Well, it's a tough one. My number 1 catch is when I was fielding at second slip at Headingley in the Ashes. Paul Rifle bowling down the hill. It's freezing cold. We've got 3 jumpers on. He was a bit skiddy, Paul Rifle. And at Headingley, we're fielding at the soccer ground end. And that ground actually drops away a bit there. And he bowled quite a full ball to Alex Stewart. He slashed it really late, and it sort of come real quick and low. And I just my natural instincts, I just dived to my right and went straight in. So I consider that the best catch because the pace it went.
It was a bit of a cut.
It was a cut, so it was hit late, so less time to react. It was cold, the ball's hard, all those sorts of things. We'll make it even better by the end of this segment. So that's my number 1 catch, I think. Number 2, I'm going to say the World Cup final.
Lords. Tulawasti.
It might have been the first over. So
off pitch.
So the ball is quite hard, slippery. Sometimes the new ball's harder to catch than an older ball. And just because of the moment, World Cup final. And I dived to my right. It wasn't a full-length dive, and sometimes full-length dives are actually easier to catch than sort of if you're half, because you don't have the
give almost.
The give. So I'll say that because of the moment of the game. And then probably the catch off Inzamam Haque in Hobart off Warney, where I stood up.
Once again,
it was a full ball, very full, a cut shot, so you get less time to see it, and he hit it really quickly, and I just sort of naturally back, and I kept sort of watching, anticipating what it was going to be, and then I just sort of stuck my hand out, and it went in the middle. So I think they're my top 3. So your top 3, I know it's going to be difficult because you do take a lot of one-handers.
Top
what do you
3.
got for us?
So I reckon my first one, my number 1 is actually, wasn't a slips catch. I was at backward point. BJ Watling cut one off Mitchell Marsh, and I dived full length to my left. I've taken quite a few one-handers in my right hand, but my unnatural hand, my left one, I've put this as my number 1 because it was my unnatural hand.
Yep.
Big moment in the game from memory, and yeah, pulled it off with my left hand. So I'll put that as number 1. Number 2 would probably be I caught Chris Wokes off Mitch Marsh again. Geez, I've taken a few off Mitch Marsh.
He's lucky bowler, isn't he?
Yeah, isn't he? It was the Ashes at the Oval. He was bowling a lovely spell. I think he took 5 for that day, actually. Swung it away, big drive from Chris Wokes, and the ball kind of like swung away from me as well, and just a full stretch to the right, straight in the middle of the hand. That was probably my number 2.
That's the other thing in England. Sometimes the ball does swing late.
Wobbles.
And if the seam gets on that angle, it'll go up.
Yep.
And sometimes it gets straight, it can duck away late. Either way.
They're tough.
Make you look silly.
Yep,
But
can
you did
do.
well to catch a swinging ball as well.
And then I think the 3rd one would probably be Kane Williamson, pink ball under lights, Mitchell Starc bowling. Kane, obviously a terrific player. I think he was on 30-odd, looking pretty good, and he's played one off the back foot, a semi-back foot punch, and I've just dived full length to my right. Pink ball's difficult to pick up.
How is it like just a glow, or is it hard to sort of focus on?
Yeah, under lights it can be difficult. You get some light coming off the ball, and it's a bit of a glow. So
all right.
yeah, I'd have to rate that one as number 3.
Very good. Good top 3.